Okay, students, I know I promised I'd get this video on. I was having problems getting my Interwrite board to write, so I had to do something a little bit different. I've never used this software before or this pen, so hopefully it'll go okay. So what we were working on today and yesterday and some of the other classes is we're taking a real number that has an irrational number with it, a real number that has an irrational number with it, and we're multiplying these two things together. And one thing that you need to remember is the fact that this 4, an outside number, can never times an inside number. That is a no-no. But you can have an inside number times an inside number. And out of the things that you need to remember about this homework that we're doing in these type of problems, I think that's the most important thing. Now, some of you have been struggling with your times tables. I really encourage you to work on those. You've got to learn your times tables, people. You really do. I don't know what else to tell you. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to check to see if we have to simplify anything. And if you look right here, that 12 right there, we can simplify. The 3 is okay inside. If we don't simplify these things, it can really cause us problems later on. Go back to this marker. Okay, so let's take the 12, just the square root of 12. That square root of 12 we know simplifies to 4 times 3. Well, 4 is a perfect square, so the 4 comes out as a 2, and the square root of 3 is left inside. So all this stuff right there now becomes 2. Now we've got a 4 times, and there's the 2 square roots of 3. Now we know 4 times 2 is 8, so this whole thing now becomes 2 plus 8 square roots of 3. And what kind of gives it away that we've done this problem right is I have a 3 inside there and a 3 inside there. So that's kind of a giveaway that we're doing this problem right. So now I'm going to come over here. We're going to write this other side down. And then we're going to start the business of simplifying these two factors. So we're going to write this first piece down. We want to times everything in here to everything in there. So let's start with the 4. So we're going to take that 4 and times it to this entire parentheses. So that gives me 2 plus 8 square roots of 3. And I'm going to add it to whatever I get when I take this next one and times it by everything in here. So that's a negative 2 square roots of 3. And I times it to the second parenthesis, 2 plus 8 square roots of 3. All right, now we're ready to start multiplying. And now again, an outside, just a regular number, cannot times something inside a square root. The only time you can multiply a square root to the inside to an inside is, that's the only time you can. You have to have a square root times the square root. An irrational number times an irrational number. So we're going to go 4 times 2. That gives me the 8. Then I'm going to go 4 times the 8. The 4 can't times the 3 inside, but it can the 8. So that gives me 32 square roots of 3. So that piece is all done. Now I've got a negative 2. That 2 cannot times there, but these two, because they're outside numbers, I can take 2 times a negative 2. That gives me a negative 4. Then I get a negative 4, and the square roots of 3 just comes forward. Now I take a negative 2 times the negative 8, and I get a negative 16 square roots of 3. All right. Times, I got another one. Negative 2 times the 8 gives me the negative 16, but then I have the square root of 3 times the square root of 3. I almost forgot that. Okay, now this right here, if I take the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, and this is what we talked about yesterday in class, that equals 3. Okay, so let's rewrite everything here. So I've got my 8. I've got my plus 32 times the square root of 3. Add, then I've got my negative 4 square roots of 3. and then I have negative 16 times 3, because that's what this is, and that gives me a negative 48. Now let's combine all our numbers together. Well, I've got a negative 48 plus that 8. That gives me a negative 40. And now I've got, these are both the same on the inside, so I can add these numbers in front. So that gives me 32 minus 4. That gives me a positive 28, and then that 28 has the square root of 3 with it. So that right there is your final answer. Okay, so some things to remember. The only time you can multiply the inside is when you have two insides, and you can multiply them. You never can take an outside number times it to an inside number. Another point to remember is that when you have two identical square roots that you're multiplying together, what you get is just the number inside. And then the last thing is that when you have two identical numbers on the inside of the square root, then you can add the numbers in front. So there's the tutorial for today, and make sure you do your homework and have happy homework. So I'll see you tomorrow in class. Hopefully some of you are able to watch this and watch it as many times as you want. Thanks, and have a good evening.